Did Jesus travel to hell while he was in the tomb? I've always been under the idea that hell is a future place and destination. Great question. Did Jesus go to hell while he was in the tomb? Now, the Apostles' Creed says he descended unto hell. And yet, of course, the Apostles' Creed is not Scripture. It wasn't even written by the Apostles. It was a document by the early church. But did Jesus descend into hell? This is the question. And Chase, you had a good comment here where you say, I've always been under the idea that hell is a future place or a future destination. Now, let me say that in a sense, let me start right there on this, again, the question, did Jesus descend to hell? The sub-question here, I always thought hell was a future place. You're actually right there in that what we have in the Scripture, what we think of as hell, is the lake of fire. And nobody's in the lake of fire yet. They will be later thrown into the lake of fire. The first ones to go into the lake of fire are the Antichrist and those who follow the Antichrist. And they'll arrive there first. Later on, Satan, who will, during the time that the Antichrist is there, Satan will be bound in the abyss, but he'll not be in the lake of fire. But at the end of the millennium, he will be cast into the lake of fire. And Revelation chapter 20 says then that the rest of the dead, that is, all of those who were not a part of previous resurrections, which is what you want to be a part of, the rest of them, they're all thrown into the lake of fire that actually is prepared for Satan and his demons. So the lake of fire, it appears, exists today, but it's empty today of souls. But it will be inhabited later. So Jesus did not go into the lake of fire. But what we have in the Scripture, in the New Testament and the Old Testament, is not heaven and hell. What we have in the Scripture, especially prior to the resurrection, we have Sheol, the place of the dead. And Jesus, I think, certainly, though the biblical grounding of this is a little bit weak, I'll have to admit, I think that Jesus descended to Sheol. That is the place of the dead. And Sheol, from what we can understand from the Scriptures, especially through the New Testament, Sheol had its categories, and there was the place of torment, and there was the place that Jesus called paradise. Today I will be with you in paradise. I don't think that the thief on the cross actually went to heaven when he died. He went to Sheol, the place of the dead, and he went to the paradise place there. Now, part of it's also called Abraham's bosom, and what is there? You remember perhaps the story of the rich man and Lazarus, and Lazarus was the one who was in Abraham's bosom, or in that paradise portion of Sheol. The rich man was in a place of torment. So there was, if we could say it this way, there was a hellish aspect to part of Sheol. And then there was a paradise aspect. And it appears, again, putting several scriptures together and what we can do here in 1 Peter and others, well, it appears that what we have is Jesus went and he took captivity captive. Those like Lazarus had been held captive by death itself, and they were in paradise in Abraham's bosom, and he took that and he took them with him. And he proclaimed again, a number of ways that we could take that passage. He proclaimed to the spirits that were bound. That could be on the good side or the bad side, depending on how you put this. But I do think that what we have is that Jesus went to Sheol. And my Hebrew friend is trying to make sure I pronounce it correctly here. And he descended into the place of the dead. And he rose again from the place of the dead. And Jesus himself said, I've not yet been glorified, you remember, after he rose. He hadn't been to heaven. He hadn't been to the throne room. He had been to Sheol, the place of the dead. And he conquered death on our behalf. And this is what he has done. So did Jesus descend to Sheol? I think there's a pretty strong case for it. Otherwise, where did he go? Did he descend to hell? I think you're right, Chase, in Texas, that would not be the case.